Well, welcome everyone. It's nice to see folks here. We have, hope you enjoyed the keynote presentation. We're now moving into our alumni and industry panel. This is for graphic design. We have an awesome panel here today. So really excited for folks to be able to join and join in this conversation. So to start out with, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Pearl Mendonca, and I am the Manager of Career and Student Success Advising at Mohawk College. I'm really excited to be at this event today. So as I said, we have some great panelists, and we are recording this session as well so that you're aware. We look forward to hearing from the panelists first, and then we'll have some time for question and answer because folks here are really excited to kind of share their experiences with you. And don't mind me, but I'm going to keep letting folks in as we go here. Okay, perfect. So I will start with our bios. So on our panel today, we have Sarah Bullard. Sarah is a recent graduate from Mohawk College's graphic design program. She took the illustration stream during her time there, specializing in digital drawing and motion graphics. She seeks opportunities to learn wherever she goes, which led her to work at the print lab at Mohawk, ultimately finishing her time there with knowledge in both illustration techniques and printing processes. She currently works at a large format printer, handling the many jobs that come in day to day. She also often works on special projects, allowing her to use photography, video techniques, vector illustration, motion graphics, web design, and much more. We also have Marin Hudson with us. After graduating from Mohawk College's graphic design program in 2018, Marin worked her way from junior graphic designer to co-owner of KiteString, a local design agency serving community-based businesses in Hamilton and the surrounding area. Motivated by the potential to create impact, she focuses on how to best communicate big ideas and spark action through strategic planning and design. Marin's skill set includes branding and campaign development, with a love of layout and function-first thinking. When faced with an unexpected challenge, she communicates and collaborates to find an innovative and creative solution. Born in Guelph, Marin is now proud to call Hamilton home. Her work with vulnerable populations, nonprofit organizations, and student groups is evident in her person-first approach to every project. Marin is passionate about people, motivated by her community, and leads every KiteString project from start to finish. As a provisional RGD with the Association of Registered Graphic Designers, Marin hopes to further engage with the design community and share her skills with future generations of designers. We also have on the panel Demara Nolet, recently Nolet. Demara is a lead graphic designer at Hotline Apparel Incorporated, Canada's largest supplier for college and university wear. Graduating in 2017 from the Mohawk graphic design program, she also has experience from working in the DPLC for several semesters. Hired in 2017, immediately after graduation, she started as a junior graphic designer at Hotline, where in the past 4 years, she has moved to the lead design position with a small design team. She specializes in textiles and direct-to-garment screen printing and embroidery. Her work has been featured in such shops as HomeSense and Roots, and she currently has a US College Times Champion line in Boathouse. Also on our panel, we have Amanda Cicero. Amanda graduated with honors from Mohawk College in 2016, earning an advanced diploma in graphic design. After graduating, she didn't stray far. She was a graphic designer for the Mohawk Students Association for 2 years before setting her sights on Brand Boulevard. Amanda has worked at Brand Boulevard as a graphic designer for 3 years now, where she has the pleasure to work with an amazing team on a variety of projects for clients, both high profile and small business, and recently won the Company Integrity Award. She also works as a freelance designer in her spare time. Amanda's education at Mohawk College and her practical experience have led her to a successful professional career in the creative industry and has achieved her goal of working a job that she loves. And our last panelist is Melissa Weldon. Melissa Weldon is an honors graduate of Mohawk College's graphic design program. She has worked in a design capacity for Hamilton Health Sciences, Scotiabank, Mohawk College, and the University of Toronto. As a freelancer, she is the go-to designer for local businesses in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. This includes clients in construction, startups, and non-for-profits. Melissa currently works in marketing and communications at McMaster University, where she strategizes and executes marketing plans, social media campaigns, and student recruitment and engagement initiatives. She is a member of Mohawk College's Program Advisory Committee for the Graphic Design Program and is currently pursuing an honors social psychology degree at McMaster University. She aims to better understand how psychology is used in marketing to influence consumer behavior and buying habits, and the importance of the user experience in digital applications and design. In her spare time, Melissa can be found scouring Pinterest for design inspiration, walking Hamilton's trail system with her chocolate lab, Muchacho, did I get that right? And drooling over good kerning. So I'd like to welcome all of our panelists, and we're gonna start it off with questions. So my first question for all of you, after graduating from Mohawk, what has your career path been? We've heard a little bit about that through the bios, but we'd love to hear from you what your career path has been.
I can get us started. I tried a number of different things after I graduated. Some of it was working as a designer. I did some freelance stuff. I worked at a startup for a little bit and got to travel with that, which was great. Through the different roles that I've had an opportunity to try web, to do more traditional print design, some large format design as well. So now I'm, as Pearl mentioned, I'm at McMaster right now. So I kind of took the scenic route to get where I am now. But I feel like having done a number of things with Scotiabank and Hamilton Health Sciences, and again, freelancing, that's a great opportunity to learn about different industries and gain some contacts. So that's kind of been my journey. I didn't take like a super direct path. I tried a bunch of little things throughout the way to kind of figure out which direction I wanted to go in.
Nice. I'll jump in next. So mine kind of opposite to that. I did a bunch of different things before ending up where I am, or before finishing Mohawk. And then once I finished Mohawk, I actually started as a junior graphic designer at Kite String, which is an agency in Hamilton. Worked my way into a graphic designer role, so dropped the junior. And then the opportunity presented itself last year for me to take over the company. So now myself and my now business partner run Kite String. So we run this design agency that has been around for the last 14 years. So now that's what I'm doing. So I lead our creative team there.
I can jump in next. So as you were saying, I worked at the Mohawk Student Association right after I graduated. I worked there for 2 years, mainly doing all the posters that you probably see around campus, menus and website maintenance as well. And then after that, I set my sights on Brand Boulevard. I started here on a 1-year contract that turned into a full-time permanent position. Our main service is promotional products and branded merchandise, which we create proofs and artwork for. But then we also do a lot of creative design, such as logos and branding, print design, branded merchandise concepts, and we've actually started offering online web stores as well. Now I'm at the point where I'm starting to take more of a leadership role, and that's where I am now.
Go next. So I applied to some jobs before even graduating Mohawk, and that's when I reached out to Hotline and they hired me on. So I actually started with them part-time before even finishing school, which was really nice. And then I transitioned to full-time as soon as school had ended. And that's kind of been where I'm at for the past 4 years, but it's been a real growing experience because they're such a small company, getting to grow with them from having only one artist to bringing me on to having now 2 other artists working under me. It's been a really good experience.
And I guess, yes, my turn. So I'm a recent graduate from Mohawk. So I graduated at like the beginning of the pandemic. So I wasn't really sure like how everything was going to work out, you know, like what kind of opportunities were going to be out there now that like the pandemic has like basically affected everything. So I tried to take an approach where I was like really seeking and like really kind of like taking a look and just being like really open-minded to the opportunities that are around me. And then I was presented opportunity actually by one of the teachers that a company was hiring for print and digital. And he recommended me because I had spent some time like my last year in the digital like the print center at Mohawk, and I really enjoyed my time there. Like I said, I came from like the illustration background, so it's surprising for me that I ended up in print, but I think it was a really great opportunity, and I learned so much, and being able to like have knowledge in both sections, I feel like made me a lot stronger as a candidate. So when I took the job, I started working as like a junior pre-press. So I would do a lot of pre-flighting on files for like billboards and like bus shelters and various other kind of like projects that we had going on. And then after that, I kind of got moved into a lot of like working on the actual presses and running actual jobs, and, you know, kind of being able to have that knowledge from like pre-press, bringing it over actually to the printer and seeing how things get produced, like learning how things come together in real life. And my company prints a lot of stuff. I work at Category 5. It's a print company in Burlington. And we print a lot of store signage for like routes and for like Boathouse and things like that. So being able to see how like everything kind of comes together, from working with designers to be able to create something that they had originally visualized, has been really redeeming. And since I came from like graphic design like that, they were able to like let me help up with like their with their website, like a lot of images on the website I've taken photography for. I take photos of like some of their products, stuff for social media, videos, animations, kind of a lot of different interactive stuff. So it's been really rewarding for me because I've been able to use basically all the knowledge that I had recently come out of school with. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Great. I noticed like through some of the reflections that folks are sharing, there's a lot of that kind of, you know, one experience building on the other. I'm hearing a lot of that like kind of pathway connection, but it's not, all of the pathways you described were all very different. Like everyone's taking kind of different routes, depending on, you know, what opportunities they were given, maybe right out of school to where they are now. But it's neat that it sounds like there's been additional kind of, you know, lead opportunities or ways that you can kind of step forward after you've had those entry level roles. That's like great for students to hear. I think that, you know, you can start somewhere, but you can keep evolving. And that's what I'm hearing from all of your stories. When you think about the soft skills in your profession, so kind of above and beyond like technical training, what are the soft skills do you feel that have helped you succeed in kind of that those pathways that you've gone through?
I don't mind starting us off. Okay.
Sure.
The biggest one I would say is communication. I mean, it's all pretty well what our job's about. Learning to communicate well with your coworkers and managers, as well as clients, is integral. Also learning to explain your work to your clients. It's a big one. You get a little bit of it in college, but it's such a big part of the role, being able to explain the reasons and thoughts behind what you created will not only help them, like help you sell them on the work, but also shows that you know your stuff. The next thing I'd say is openness to criticism. It's super easy to get attached to your work in any creative field. So it can make it difficult to listen to feedback sometimes, but always taking criticism constructively and with an open mind will really help you in this field. Remember that you're creating for a purpose, not just for the sake of it or for yourself, right? So there's a specific goal, and at the end of the day, you want to service the client to the best of your abilities and create something that they'll be happy with. You might not be always happy with every step of the way, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to be creating something that your client will be happy with. And if you do that, you've achieved your goal. Also, I'd say time and project management is huge. This industry is super fast paced, and the likelihood of you juggling many projects at the same time and shifting priorities like day to day, it's just kind of the norm in our industry. So if you kind of get used to that, it's something that you'll get better at with experience too, but just being prepared to be juggling different projects all the time. I mean, it's pretty similar to college anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of a curveball when you get out into the field. But then coming along with that would also be stress management. It's like super easy to get stressed with all the different timelines going on, just kind of like college, right? But my biggest word of advice is just don't be afraid to take breaks every now and again. Of course, your deadlines don't move, but if you've been staring at something for too long and you're starting to feel stressed or like you've got creative block, don't be afraid to take a step back, maybe take a break, go, watch an episode of Netflix for a while and then come back to it. Even bouncing ideas off coworkers if you work on a team, or even just friends, can help a lot too. And then don't be afraid to ask for help too, especially if you work on a team. There's often times where maybe you can juggle some projects so a team member can help out, and it'll make you feel less stressed at the end of the day.
Nice. I would agree with everything Amanda just said. The first one I would absolutely say is communication. I think even if you don't feel like your communication skills, like while you're in school, are as strong as you can, or you like hate the fact that you have to present things, realistically, that's something worth practicing, whether it's practicing with yourself or with a friend or a partner or in those classes. I know it's obviously different with this virtual land. Getting comfortable with this virtual land is a strong suit now, because this is what we have to do a lot of the time. But my communication skills have been undoubtedly like the most important thing in terms of, not only me finding employment, but then me connecting with our clients and building relationships with coworkers or people in the community. It's just been a really big piece. I also think that, like, in terms of my own personal soft skills that are a little less, everybody needs them. I just find myself, I've always been like a compassionate and really understanding person. And I used to see that as more of a weakness. I was like the one who did take things to heart and was emotionally involved in my work. And while I totally agree with Amanda that being emotionally involved in your work can be a dangerous thing, I also encourage anyone who feels that way to like see that as an asset. It's allowed me to build stronger relationships with my clients, with the people that we get to work with. I pull in my previous experience prior to graphic design, working with kids with autism. I pull that in all the time because that lends itself so well to the nonprofits and all these other organizations that I have the opportunity to work with. So things that you see sometimes as a weakness or have proven to, hold you back sometimes, I would encourage you to see how you can kind of flip that and lean into those things. And alongside with that, I would just say setting boundaries. Learn how to set boundaries, practice setting boundaries, say no to something every once in a while. If you are at capacity, it's okay to say no. It's not the end of the world, and ultimately it sets you up for success in taking on the next thing. If you don't have capacity for something, you're not going to do a great job at it. So even if it's a tiny little thing, just exercising that right to say no, that you don't have to take every job that comes your way, I think is a really important boundary to set, and one that the more you do, the more like the better the work you get to do. So that's it.
Any other thoughts on soft skills that folks want to share?
Yeah, I've got a couple things that I've learned along the way. I think one, and it's already building off what Amanda and Marin were speaking to, but one is patience. So patience with yourself and patience with clients. I think it's important to always put yourself in the client's shoes. So be mindful about how you're talking to them. So if you're talking about like CMYK or EPS or like hex codes or whatever, they're not going to know what that means. So always being mindful, like how is this going to look to the client? How is it going to sound to them? And be patient, right? They're not designers. That's why they've hired you. So if they're asking for ridiculous things or they want their logo like a kabillion times bigger, like just be patient. So I think that's a really important thing to learn. Networking, networking is super important, especially if you are working with printers. Having a really strong relationship with your printer is amazing. I've had printers who I've gone to do a bunch of work for me for a corporation that I'm working for. And then when I send them work for, say, like one of my own personal freelance clients or one of my own personal jobs, they'll like give me a discount on stuff. So having those relationships, as long as it's like a two-way street kind of thing, like don't, abuse that, but networking, super, super important. And then I would also say, do your research when it comes time to applying for jobs. So know how much designers are going for in the industry based on your own experience and skill set, places like Glassdoor, Indeed. Check out those sites so you know exactly what the going rate is and what your skills are worth. And then the only other thing that I would say, and I think somebody spoke to this already, is be careful how you're defending your work. There's a big difference between defending and just being defensive. So it's okay to defend your design choices, but don't get too defensive. You want to kind of be strategic in the choices that you're making. And I think Amanda already said, like, sometimes it's just going to be like, well, too bad, like do it this way anyway. And when that happens, do it, and then just go home, have your own sort of creative pet projects on the side where you can just do whatever the hell you want and you don't have to answer to anybody. So I would say that that's also important. Make sure you have your own creative outlets outside of work stuff. That's my rant.
A good one.
I like that thought about a lot of themes of self-care, heard about boundaries, and then Melissa, I think you were starting to talk about, like, as folks are looking for work, so as students are starting to look for work and what they should do, like that research piece being kind of really key. But I think all of you talked about communication as that sort of underlying soft skill that means so many different things, and I can hear means so many different things in your particular industry and how you work with clients and how you connect and things like that. So that's really cool. I want to turn our attention to and get your thoughts on what do you see as the coming trends in the sector that new graduates should be aware of?
One thing I've really seen, especially with the pandemic, is a return to everything that's a staple. So people are no longer really looking for the frills or the extra. I know even just in the apparel industry, one thing we've been really thankful for is we don't really deal with, fashiony things. We deal with their staples. They're, the things that every store sells. And that's what people have been asking us for this year because nobody has the funds to, use on extra things and stuff like that. So definitely when you're looking for work or things like that, looking for, companies or opportunities that provide that, staple that you can always fall back on is really good.
I think too, one of the things that I've noticed is a huge rise in video. And graphic designers now, it's not just creating brochures, it's kind of become this sort of umbrella term. But video is huge right now. So if you're able to gain experience, and I think the program might have courses in video now. I don't know what it's looking like, but like After Effects, Premiere Pro, that kind of stuff is really, really valuable to employers right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My note here was just about digital and social media work being more and more in demand, and video is a huge piece of that. If you love social media, people will pay you lots of money to run their social media. Most companies do not want to do it, or they don't have the capacity for it, and that is work that they look to outsource. It's also something that within any given company, unless you're a social media agency, like our agency will build social media strategies, but we will not implement them because we just simply do not have the capacity to manage people's day-to-day accounts and all that kind of thing. So if that's something that you love to do, if you love creating content, if you're like a TikTok all-star, there is money in that. There are really rewarding experiences in that, and that's something that you can do. And the digital and video piece, just like more and more people looking for websites. So if that's something you're keen on, lean into it, learn lots about it, learn, what platforms are being most used, or check out the up and coming platforms and resources on things. Because particularly with this pandemic, as Damara said, like people have gone back to basics, and then people have also realized like, oh shoot, I have no digital presence whatsoever. And if I am stripped of the real in-person world, this is now the real world, but if we're stripped of that in-person experience, what is left is that digital presence. And so that's just a really important piece of the puzzle. So we've seen a huge increase in the people coming to us for websites, for social media support, for digital strategies.
Totally. I totally agree with everything everybody said so far, especially the digital aspect of things. They're never going to slow down in that front, right? So we've got things like motion graphics and web design. I think you learn a little bit about WordPress and different platforms like that. So I see a lot of work for WordPress or using Shopify and different things like that to create websites. So I think it's definitely something to learn about and add that skill to your tool belt. Because I see so many positions where it's kind of like a hybrid role, right? Like you're rarely in a position where you're just doing design. There's usually other things that go along with that, whether it be photography or web design or maintaining a company's social media. It kind of all goes hand in hand, and you're usually asked to wear a lot of different hats in the industry. So, which isn't a bad thing as long as you make sure that you're being compensated fairly in that aspect. I actually love that part about this job is you get to work on a variety of different things. So the more skills you have on your belt, the better, I'd say. For my sector specifically, I would say there's one thing in particular that all designers should really think about, and that's thinking about every step of the design process, including production. So for what I do on a daily basis, I mainly set up a lot of artwork for production, whether it be screen printing on apparel or print, or different decoration methods for different products in the industry. And I come across a lot of artwork sent in by clients done by other graphic designers, where they create some really cool, awesome things, but it's not going to work for the method that it's being produced in. So unfortunately, a lot of the times I have to alter their design to make it work for that decoration method, whether it be sending in a print file without bleed, or sending it in RGB when it should be CMYK. Even things like not specifying Pantones and CMYK and RGB when you're creating logos, just all those little details to keep in mind, because it greatly affects your design. Like I said, it would really suck to create something super cool and then it goes to production and they have to completely change it because it doesn't work for the method that it's being produced in, right? So just keeping in mind every single step of the design process and how your design is going to be used in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything she says. Speaking as like a person who works in like print things like that, like the amount of times like I have to constantly go back to the client and say like their file is low resolution, like it has to be a certain amount, or like, you know, CMYK, or, you know, not linked files, nothing embedded, like missing things the wrong size. It's a constant like back and forth from like the production team too. So definitely, like, as I believe someone had said, like having a really good communication with your printer or whoever is producing your design is very, very key. But also in terms of speaking like on the topic of like design and like print trends, like speaking also from a printer, like even though digital is super heavy and like I manage, like I do a large part of like my social media account for like my company, and also like the videos that I create, we've noticed like in the trends like do a lot better than like any other post that we do. People really enjoy like the videos, keeping them really short for social media. We typically only stick to like a 30-second video, and we try not to go past that because, you know, people's attention span, thinking about like TikTok and things like that and how well the app's doing on really, really short videos. So that's something you can, I guess, think about when creating content for social media and things like that. But also print is also a very, very large industry and a very, very like big, and you'd think, I guess, with so much stuff going digital that like maybe it'd be slowing down, but we are super busy all the time, constantly creating signage for retail stores or billboards. Billboards are always huge. Like there's print everywhere you go, whether it's like installations and things like that. So print's also another big part for sure.
Awesome. Wow. Like I'm listening. Just so you know, I've been the client that I think many of you are talking about. And so I think, you know, it's so wonderful to hear. I think when folks get together who have that similar passion, similar background, there's that understanding there. So I love how everyone was picking up on kind of building off of what folks were talking about and the ways that you're thinking about how your work is going to be impacted. You'll be shocked to know that we are kind of wrapping towards the end of our panel because we've got about 10 minutes left. And I want to offer an opportunity for folks to ask questions. So I will, for folks who are in the room today, who have any questions for our panel, please feel free to pop those into the chat, and then we can circulate those questions. And just as those are coming in, does anyone have any, like maybe a quick tip? I know you've shared many tips for students who are graduating, but any other tips that you're thinking about that you really want to get across to graduating students or recent alumni, in terms of, you know, maybe a piece of knowledge that you would wish you had known as you were finishing up your program?
I have a couple of thoughts about that. So just kind of repeating myself from before, just researching the going rate for designers and educating yourself is so important. But then the other thing that I would add as well, and I think Amanda mentioned it, that, you know, as a graphic designer, we kind of wear lots of hats, which is very true. And I would also say a word of caution: don't feel like you have to be able to do everything under the graphic design umbrella. Be realistic about your skill sets. I was asked once during a job interview about my illustration skills, and I was like, I'm an amazing illustrator, like I can draw anything, and I'm a terrible drawer. Like I was in the print stream, I didn't even do the illustration side. So be realistic. It's okay to focus on your strengths and develop those strengths. You don't, if you can do everything, amazing, but don't feel like you have to do every single thing that falls under this umbrella.
Totally agreed.
Yeah, that was something I was going to say as well.
Yeah, even like what Marin was saying earlier, like don't be afraid to say no. Like
Exactly.
if you know that a certain skill is not your strength, you know, it's okay to be courageous and try it. But I mean, sometimes when you're working on client work, they don't have time for it not to be good, right? So it's probably not a good idea for that to be like the time you try something new. So it's totally okay to say no, even if it's just, even like Marin was saying, like if it's just a job you don't have time for, it's totally okay to say no. it's very easy to take on too much in this industry. There is lots of opportunity. Like, speaking of which, know your value. Like, don't undervalue your work, especially if you're still a student or even a recent grad. There's probably going to be a lot of times you're going to be asked to work for free, and just really qualify those opportunities. I'm not about to tell you what, not to work for free, if that's cool with you, but I would say really qualify those opportunities, especially if there is other paid work. Your work has value, it takes time, and you should be charging accordingly for that. And not allow yourself to be taken advantage of, because unfortunately that's another easy thing to happen in any industry, really, especially creative industries. So just know your value.
Yeah, I also would add that that's not just, you're not only doing yourself a disservice when you're undervaluing your service, but you're setting, other people up in the industry too. You're lowering the standard and the value of that work across the industry when we continue to undercharge for things. So if you take a look at what's out there, do your research, see what other similar jobs are going for. The RGD, the Registered Graphic Designers, also have a resource for that. Every year they do a survey of graphic designers and designers at all different levels and positions, and they take a survey of how much they're making. And that's a really a powerful resource, because you get to see the lowest value that people submitted that they charge, the highest value, what the middle looks like. And that's just a really good thing, again, to just have an understanding and then make a decision about what you want to charge for your own services. I also wanted to just say that there's a mindset, I think, coming out of the graphic design program, that there are ideal jobs or ideal companies to work for, like, oh, working for this company is super cool, which is sure, maybe true. Some of them are cool, but there are so many other opportunities out there that are not being talked about while you're in that program. I know it's stressful to be at the end of it and worrying what's on the other side of it, particularly in a pandemic that looks even different. I'm gonna ignore the fact my cat is eating my plant at the moment. But it's just like, there are lots of different things and those all look different, and you might take illustration, like Sarah said, and then end up in a print job, or vice versa. And there's power in knowing people that are strong at different things and being able to recommend them for something that you don't want to do or you don't have time for. So lean into that. Like, every one of these experiences adds to your skill set. Even if it's saying no, that's adding to your toolkit. So don't be afraid to kind of explore those options. And
I just want to take this opportunity to very much thank everyone on our panel today. So Sarah, Marin, Demira, Melissa, Amanda, for making time during their evening to be with us and share all this great information. This is recorded, and so I hope that folks will be able to benefit from this past even tonight. Thank you guys for all your contributions back to Mohawk. We love seeing Mohawk grads in the community coming back and helping, and we hope you stay connected to alumni and finding other ways to connect back in. Thank you again for making time.
thank you, Pearl.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.